Welcome to our lesson on creating a professional GitHub profile. I'm Matt Leonard, a course developer at Udacity. In this lesson, you'll create or update your GitHub profile for use as a portfolio of your work. You'll also learn how to impress recruiters by contributing to open source projects. If you don't have experience with Git and GitHub, please take Udacity's course on version control with Git. Just follow the link in the instructor notes, then come back here when you're done, and we'll work on your profile. Artists use a portfolio to hold examples of their work. For instance, here's a couple paintings in my portfolio. I call this Octopus on a Swing, and this is Two Cellos and a Baby. Similarly, my GitHub profile is a portfolio of my programming work. You can use GitHub the same way to show off your work to potential employers. Your profile will also show how you work. Don't worry, we'll go through various ways to make your GitHub profile into a professional portfolio. Now, let's look at an excellent GitHub profile through the eyes of a recruiter. This is Scott Moss's profile. He's a software engineer here at Udacity. Over on the left is the personal information. A picture with a friendly smile can help recruiters make a connection with you, but it isn't mandatory. If you aren't using a picture of yourself, be sure to include a picture that somehow captures your personality, but nothing crude. Below is some general information and a link to Scott's Twitter account. Recruiters can look through Scott's tweets to get a sense of the things he's interested in. Similarly, I have a link to my personal blog. Also, make sure your username is something professional, like your name. It's not a good idea to name yourself after your favorite pop star. Okay, back to Scott's profile. Over here, we see a list of Scott's most popular repositories. These are ranked by the number of stars, which are given by other GitHub users that like the repository. The descriptions are nice so that we know what these repositories are for. To the right is a list of other repositories that Scott has contributed to. This is a clear indication that he is involved in collaborating with others on open source software. Employers can look through Scott's contributions to judge how well he works on a team. We can see that NGFX is really popular. We'll take a look at it later. Down here is the contribution chart. This is one of the first things a hiring manager is going to look at. Each square is a day. The darkness of the green indicates how many contributions were made on that day. You can see that Scott is very active, making at least one contribution most days. It's pretty clear that Scott spends a lot of time working with code, a good sign to a recruiter. Now we can check out one of Scott's repositories to get a sense of his work. Let's check out NGFX over here, the most popular repository he's worked on. We can see here that Scott made the most recent commit. If we click through to the contributors, it's clear that Scott has written most of the code. Going back to the repository, firstly we see a short description of the code. This is a library for making animations with Angular. He's also included a link to a GitHub page for the library. These GitHub pages are easy to create and very impressive. Here's the Readme, one of the most important parts of a repository. Its main purpose is to help others understand and use the code. A repository without a Readme has no starting point for someone to understand it. We'll come back to the Readme. It deserves special attention. Now we can scroll back up to look at the most recent commits Scott has made. Most of the recent commits are updating the version number and other chores, but there are some features and other additions too. We could look through some of these commits to understand how Scott writes code, but I'm not going to get into that now. Next, we'll hear from a hiring manager at Udacity about what he looks for in a GitHub profile. I'm here with Art Gillespie, an engineer and hiring manager here at Udacity. Thanks for coming.
Oh, thanks for having me, Matt.
Of course. So what I asked you here for is that I'm trying to teach students how to use their GitHub profile as a portfolio to show off their work. So I want them to get a sense of what a hiring manager or a recruiter actually looks for from their GitHub profile.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So just start out, what is your role as a hiring manager?
Well, as a hiring manager, really, it's a collaborative role where I work with engineers on the team and leadership, and we sort of figure out, what attributes do we value in engineers, and then we work closely with, we have amazing recruiters and HR people here. We work closely with them to sort of figure out how do we best screen for those attributes. And then, of course, I spend a lot of time actually, doing interviews, screening people, looking at people's GitHub repos, at their LinkedIn's and whatnot, and just trying to get a sense of the candidates and then making a hiring decision.
Cool. So when you're looking at a GitHub profile, what's the first thing you look at, and then why is it important?
Well, yeah, the first thing I look at is that sort of heat map at the bottom with the activity, the different shades of green. because that just gives me a really good sense of, does this person, are they passionate about coding?
Yeah.
And do they contribute often? And it doesn't have to be like all the time, but you see like sort of steady patterns. And I found that that just correlates with success in the workplace. You know, people that love to code.
Awesome. And so when after your initial impressions, like looking at this activity chart, so what's the next thing you look at? Like what else do you look at to get a sense of the candidate?
Well, for me, the next step is just to say, okay, well, here are the repos they've created, here are the repos they've contributed to, where have they done the meatiest work, and like pick one of those and just dig in. And I'll just spend, sometimes an hour just reading their code and trying to get a sense for the kind of, engineer they are. I'll also sometimes just dig into, have they contributed to other GitHub repos issues? How do they interact with other people in those discussions and whatnot? Are they a good collaborator? Are they patient? That sort of thing.
Welcome back. In the instructor's notes, you'll find a link to a GitHub profile. Imagine yourself as a recruiter looking at this profile. Identify parts that could be improved and mark them with the checkboxes. Now I'll go through the profile and give you my thoughts. The profile picture seems a little juvenile and you can't see the face clearly. It would be better to have a normal picture without a crazy filter. We also don't know what this user's real name is. Their username, acorn47, could be better, something based off the real name. There isn't any other personal information either. If I was a recruiter, I wouldn't know how to contact this person or anything about this person really. Descriptions of the repositories would be very useful here, so I can tell what kind of projects this person has worked on. And finally, we can look at the contribution chart. There's a bunch of commits here, then a couple commits later. This person appears to not have spent much time writing code. It's possible they made a lot of changes, but packed everything into one large commit. That's not a good sign. Now, let's go through a few quick fixes to spiff up your own profile. You can follow along as I fix mine. This guy here, if you don't know, is Andre the Giant, professional wrestler, actor, and all-around good dude. However, I'm going to need a better picture, preferably of myself, if I want to connect with recruiters. Also, I'm missing a bunch of other information like my name and where I'm located. GitHub has given me a prompt to flesh out my profile to help other GitHub users get to know me. Let's follow their advice. I can edit my profile by clicking through here. Here's where I can upload a new picture. Then I'll fill out my information, my name, the URL of my blog, my company, and finally my location. Now that I'm done with that, I can also change the names of my repositories if any need a better name. My repository names look fine. If I did want to change the name, I'd click the repository and then go to settings. Here's where you can change the name. Also, don't forget to comment your code. You'll probably end up showing off a couple sections of your code to an interviewer. Make sure it's commented and working. Go ahead and make any changes to your profile that you need to. I've provided a checklist that you can use to keep track of any improvements that you need to make. When you're done, mark this checkbox over here, and we can continue on to READMEs. A well-written README is one of the most important parts of a good repository. The README is necessary for others because it tells people what the code is for, how to build or install the code, and how to contribute. To teach you how to write a good README, I'm going to hand you off to my friend Walter.
Hey.
Oh, hey. Nice to see you.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. So I have some students who need to learn how to write READMEs.
Well, that's perfect because I teach a course on just that. It's less than an hour long, and it'll teach you everything you need to know about writing documentation for humans.
Thanks. So you'll find a link to Walter's lesson in the instructor notes. When you're finished with it, head back here and we'll continue. Hi, I'm back with Art. And now I'd like to get into commits and commit messages. So commits are one of the main reasons we use Git as a version control system. So you can make these incremental changes and you can see what changed every time you make a commit. And a very important part of this is the commit message. So why is the formatting of the commit message so important?
Well, I think a well-formatted commit message is, and probably the most important reason is git blame, right? Because as you go sort of digging through people's code or your own code, trying to figure out what's wrong, especially if you're looking for a bug. But sometimes you just want to know why a line of code is the way that it is.
Yeah.
The first thing you're going to do is run git blame. It's an awesome tool, and it's going to show you the committer, but also the commit message. And if that message is just like added stuff, it gives you no context for why the code changed or why it's there in the first place. And that's super important. It's super important for you as you maintain your code down the line. It's super important for people that follow after you and maintain your code. And so, yeah, it's funny. I definitely, when I look at candidates and when I dig through their GitHub, I check out to see, sort of how thorough and well they communicate in their commit messages. It's really important.
Hi again. Look through your recent commit messages and think about the formatting. How can you make the messages more clear and helpful? Think about how you would format them using the guide in the previous reading section. Just mark this checkbox when you're ready to move on. As you are working on the rest of your nano degree, keep in mind that it's a good idea to contribute somehow to an open source project. If you don't know where to start, look through the documentation and fix a typo. Or if there is something in the documentation that isn't clear, create an issue about it and ask for help. Then you can rewrite that part and make a pull request.